governments are not meeting a target of spending 10% of their national budgets on agriculture. But he says investment has risen from 4% of national budgets to probably 5.5% today. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. You can find transcripts, podcasts, and archives of our reports at voaspecialenglish.com.
This is the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Two of Santa's reindeer, Comet and Dancer, got loose on a busy roadway in Texas just days before Christmas. Think we're joking? It happened halfway between Houston and Galveston. The reindeer's owner, Joe Mormon, is a professional Santa Claus, also known as Father Christmas or St. Nicholas or Kris Kringle. But unlike many other Santas, this one really does travel in a sleigh pulled by reindeer, except when he has to transport them. On December 14th, the back door of the trailer opened as he was driving them to an elementary school. Comet and Dancer escaped onto Interstate 45, not exactly the North Pole. Another driver alerted Santa, as he told TV station KTRK. Someone pulled up beside us, actually, and blew the horn and was waving and all that, and told us we had some animals loose. Well, my heart did not do too well. The morning traffic was heavy but slow, with people on their way to work. Drivers called the police, who at first thought they were joking. Yes, there really were reindeer in the road. Then Santa found that he had some helpers. People stopped traffic and got out of their cars. One woman took off her shoes and ran after the reindeer. Another person followed. But the reindeer themselves were the ones who ended the chase. They found a park and stopped to eat. Joe Mormon says he was more shaken than they were. He says God was with the reindeer, you know, and he takes care of fools and things that cannot take care of themselves. The story had a happy ending. Santa and his reindeer were able to visit the school children as promised. The Reindeer Owners and Breeders Association says reindeer are easy to train to pull a cart or sleigh. Greg Finstad at the University of Alaska Fairbanks says reindeer like people and are pleasant to have around. He says reindeer management is not very difficult. That's good, since he also says, and children might want to cover their ears for this part, reindeer is a basic meat in the cold climate of Alaska. For VOA Special English, I'm Alex Villarreal. You can watch a story about the runaway reindeer by KTRK reporter Deborah Wrigley at voaspecialenglish.com. Special English is VOA's daily news and information service for people learning English. You can also get English lessons 3 times a day, Monday through Friday, at the VOA Learning English page on Facebook.
A Special English Agriculture Report. The United Nations estimates that world food production will have to increase by 70% by 2050. A world population growing in number and wealth will require 1 billion tons more grain each year and 200 million tons more meat. The Food and Agriculture Organization says those gains will have to happen largely on existing land through sustainable intensification. Officials say the new report provides the first global assessment of the state of the planet's land resources. It says large parts of all continents are experiencing damage. 1/4 of all land is described as highly degraded. The greatest threats are losses of soil quality, biodiversity, and water resources. New agricultural methods and technology increased food production in many countries during the Green Revolution. Cropland increased by 12% from 1961 to 2009, yet production grew by 150%. But the new report warns that production rates have been slowing in many areas. In too many places, it says, practices that have increased production have also harmed the land and water. It calls for greater use of practices that can expand production while limiting damage to ecosystems. One such practice is the use of fertilizer trees. These are fast-growing trees and shrubs whose leaves and roots help improve soil. A recent study found that about 400,000 farmers in southern Africa are using them. The study appeared in the International Journal of Agricultural Sustainability. Lead author Alayede Ajoudi is senior scientist at the World Agroforestry Center in Nairobi, Kenya. He says, basically, these are trees that can fix nitrogen from the atmosphere and convert them into nitrates for fertilizer, for organic fertilizer. Farmers who planted fertilizer trees reported double the maize production of other farmers. In Zambia, the fertilized fields provided up to 114 additional days of food. Farmers say they need less rainwater if they use fertilizer trees. The trees reduce water runoff and soil erosion. Mr. Ajayi says the project began about 20 years ago when scientists were trying to identify the main threats to food security. The farmers themselves designed and managed part of the testing in the field and spread the word of their successes. For VOA Special English, I'm Carolyn Presutti.
The VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Mike Henry has a 2-hectare farm in Palmer, Alaska. About a year and a half ago, his goat Millie was giving him a hard time. She did not want to be milked. She kicked her back legs and stepped into the bucket that was supposed to catch her milk. But there was no milk to catch. All Mike Henry got was tired hands from his attempts to milk her. But he also got an idea. He designed a goat milking machine that does not require any electricity or motors. The Henry Milker is a hand-operated vacuum pump. A person attaches a tube to the goat, and after a little pumping, the milk begins to flow. A gauge measures the pressure of the suction. The process uses a closed system to keep hair and dirt out of the milk. The milk goes directly from the goat into a container that is then placed in the refrigerator to keep the milk cold. Mike Henry has sold his invention to hundreds of people, mainly small farmers, who also hold other jobs, just as he does. Mr. Henry is an executive director in the Anchorage School District in Alaska. He considered spending more than $1,000 for an electric milking machine, but that seemed like a lot of money to milk just one goat. So he began to develop a device of his own. He worked with parts that he bought from an auto supply store and a Walmart store. He tried the invention on Millie. How did she react? She gave a little milk. As the months passed, he improved the device. Milking Millie became easy. Mike Henry began to think other people who owned just a few goats might be interested in his invention. So he offered one on eBay, an internet marketplace. The first one sold for $45. Interest grew. Today, he receives orders from as far away as Australia and New Zealand. The regular price is $149. Recently, he has offered the system for $119 plus shipping and handling charges at goatfinder.com. The system is advertised as safe enough for children to use. The ad also says it is not designed to replace commercial machines. The average milking time with the Henry milker is 10 minutes. Mike Henry says Millie now gives about 2 liters in half that time. And that's the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. What is your secret to gaining the cooperation of a goat at milking time? You can comment at voaspecialenglish.com or on Facebook or Twitter at VOA Learning English. With the VOA Special English Agriculture Report. Cacao or cocoa trees grow in hot, rainy areas of Africa, Asia, and Central and South America. Their beans are used to make cocoa powder, cocoa butter, and of course, chocolate. There are 5 to 6 million growers, maybe more. Many are poor family farmers with only a few hectares. West Africa produces more than half of all cocoa beans. Ivory Coast leads the world in production, followed by its neighbor, Ghana. The trees are usually in their 5th year when they start to grow the pods that contain the beans. The trees produce the most pods when they are 10, but they are still productive long after that. Workers use large knives to cut the lower pods and long tools to remove pods from high on the trees. Later, they break open the pods to remove the beans. A half gram of chocolate requires about 400 beans. The World Cocoa Foundation says an average pod contains 20 to 50 beans. And experts say growers may lose perhaps 1/3 of their harvest to disease and insects. But now scientists have genetic maps of 2 kinds of cocoa trees. These genomes are mostly complete and could lead scientists to new ways to increase production and prevent disease. Mapping genes is the first step to understanding an organism. Next comes learning the job of each gene. The American Food